I'm Tanya. Sitting alone in my apartment, I'm still reeling from the events of the past few days. It all started at my parents' backyard barbecue, which was supposed to be a simple gathering but turned into a turning point in my relationship with my family. 3 weeks ago, Mom mentioned the barbecue as a casual Saturday afternoon get-together. She said it would be just some neighbors and a few friends from the country club. I should have been more skeptical. When I arrived at my parents' house in Bethesda, Maryland, the backyard was filled with at least 40 people. There were white tents, catered food, and a bartender mixing cocktails. It was anything but casual. I had just come from a 12-hour shift at the Pentagon. I was still in my standard work attire, black slacks, a conservative white blouse, and minimal jewelry. I looked and felt exhausted. The situation in the Middle East had kept me in the operations center until 2 o'clock in the morning. "Come meet the Thompsons. They just moved in down the street," Mom called out, waving me over to a group of well-dressed couples. "Tanya works for the government," Mom announced, as if I was some ordinary plant. "Oh, how nice, Mrs. Thompson said politely. "What do you do?" This was always the difficult part. "I'm an analyst," I replied. Technically, it was true. I analyze global threats to national security, but analyst was a term people could understand. Defense Department, Dad added from behind me, making it sound almost apologetic. "Can't really talk about it." "Very hush-hush." He said it as if it was something to be ashamed of, like I was in classified intelligence operations because of a character flaw rather than a sense of duty. Mr. Thompson, a real estate mogul who had just closed a $1.5 billion deal last month, said, "That's so interesting," but his tone suggested otherwise. The conversation quickly moved on without me. My parents' social circle consisted of lawyers, business tycoons, and entrepreneurs. They could freely discuss their work, and their success was measured in large sums of money and impressive job titles. I excused myself and found a quiet spot near the back fence. I pulled out my laptop, not my personal one but the rugged Dell Latitude, rated for classified operations and able to withstand a 2-story drop onto asphalt. I logged in using my fingerprint, a retinal scan, and a 15-character password that changed every 48 hours. There were 3 new intelligence briefings since I'd left the Pentagon 2 hours ago. A brewing situation in Africa that would need my attention by Tuesday. A request from a special ops team for cyber support in a high-risk mission. And routine reports from my regional directors in Paris, Sydney, and Cairo. Just as I was reviewing the African briefing, my brother Ethan appeared with a beer in his hand. "Working at a party?" "That's rude, Tanya," he said. "Just checking email," I lied. Ethan was 3 years younger than me and worked as a financial advisor at a top-tier firm. He made a fortune, traveled the world, and never missed a chance to remind me that his career was more successful than mine. "You know, you could make 3 times what you're making in the private sector," he said, sitting down next to me. Defense contractors are always looking for analysts. Better pay, better hours, and real career growth. "I'm happy where I am," I said, closing the laptop. "Are you, though?" He gestured at my outfit, my tired face, and my government-issued laptop. "You're in your late 20s, still living in a 1-bedroom apartment, and driving that old Honda. You work crazy hours for government pay. Mom and Dad are worried about you." "They don't need to worry," I replied. "They think you're wasting your potential. You're a Harvard grad, top of your class, with a master's in information security, and what are you doing? Pushing papers at some government office that won't even tell us your job title." My actual title was Deputy Director of Operations for the National Cyber Defense Agency, but I couldn't tell him that. "It's more than pushing papers," I said quietly. He finished his beer. "Look, I'm just saying you had choices. You picked the one with the least pay and the least recognition. That's fine if you're happy, but you don't look happy, Tanya." He was right. I wasn't happy, not because of my job. I loved my work. But every time I saw my family, I had to pretend my career was less important than it was. Just then, Dad's voice boomed across the backyard. "Everyone, can I have your attention?" The crowd quieted. Dad stood on the patio, holding a glass of champagne, looking very pleased with himself. "I want to take a moment to brag about my kids. Ethan just made partner at his firm at only 26 years old. We're incredibly proud of him." Ethan smiled and waved as people applauded. "And my daughter Tanya works for the government in some capacity we're not allowed to discuss," Dad continued. There was scattered polite applause. "Some low-level agency position, I think. She can't even tell us what she does exactly. It's very mysterious." He laughed, and others joined in. I felt my face flush. "But we love them both very much," Dad finished, raising his glass. "To Ethan and Tanya." I opened my laptop again, trying to focus on something other than the humiliation. The secure email system loaded, showing a new priority message from Admiral Johnson, the commander of the National Cyber Defense Agency. Subject: Urgent Chinese cyber intrusion detected. Classification: Top secret. My whole body tensed. This was the alert we'd been dreading. Chinese intelligence services had penetrated the country's critical energy infrastructure networks. They were inside the systems that monitored the nation's power grid. This was a direct attack on our strategic energy infrastructure. My phone buzzed. A text from Johnson: "Need you at the Pentagon now. Bringing this to the Joint Chiefs in 25 minutes. I stood up, calculating travel time. 15 minutes to the Pentagon if traffic was light. I could make it. "Tanya, where are you going?" Mom asked, blocking my way near the gate. "I have to go to work," I said. "No. It's Saturday afternoon." "It's urgent," I added. "Everything is always urgent with you," she said, frustration in her voice. "Can't you ever just take a day off and be normal?" "This isn't something that can wait," I said, pulling out my keys. "What could possibly be so urgent that you have to leave your father's barbecue?" She looked at me as if I was being deliberately difficult. "You're an analyst, Tanya. Can't someone else analyze things for a few hours?" I wanted to tell her the truth, that I was responsible for defending the entire nation's cyber infrastructure, that Chinese intelligence was currently inside our energy networks, and that I was one of the few people in the world who could coordinate the response. But I couldn't. "I'm sorry. I really have to go," I said. Halfway to my car, Dad caught up with me. "This is embarrassing, Tanya. We have important guests, and you're just leaving." "There's an emergency at work," I said. "There's always an emergency," he retorted. "I think you use work as an excuse to avoid family events. You've never liked these gatherings, so you make up a crisis and disappear. This is real. This is important. More important than family?" "Right now, yes," I said, my frustration boiling over. His face hardened. "You have no sense of proportion. You take this little government job so seriously, like you're saving the world. It's just a job, Tanya. It's not your whole life." My phone buzzed again. "Johnson, Chinese are moving deeper. Need your assessment ASAP." "I have to go," I said, getting into my car. "We'll talk about this later," Dad said. "Your mother is very upset." I drove away, already calling my operations center on the secure line. "This is Phoenix," I said, using my operational call sign. "I'm en route. ETA 12 minutes. Get the watch team ready. I want a full briefing package when I arrive." "Copy that, ma'am," the duty officer replied. "Admiral Johnson is already in the operations center. The Joint Chiefs have been notified. This is going to the President." 12 minutes later, I was through Pentagon security and heading to the secure facility of the National Cyber Defense Agency. The corridors were mostly empty on a Saturday afternoon, but the operations center was fully staffed. Admiral Johnson met me at the entrance. "Tanya, thank God you're here. They're in deep, and they know we know. They're trying to map our energy command and control architecture," he said. I followed him into the operations center and logged into my workstation. The threat display showed the Chinese intrusion in real time, a web of compromised systems connected to the most sensitive energy databases. "How did they get in?" I asked, pulling up the forensic data. "A phishing campaign 4 months ago," my lead analyst said. "They've been moving through the network ever since, staying just below our detection thresholds. We only caught them because they got greedy and started pulling too much data." I scanned the attack vectors, the malware signatures, and the command and control infrastructure. This was a sophisticated, state-sponsored attack. "Admiral, we need to brief the Joint Chiefs immediately. And we need authorization for defensive countermeasures," I said. "Already scheduled," he replied. "Video conference in 8 minutes. I want you presenting the technical assessment." I quickly prepared a briefing. When the secure video system connected to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, 6 faces appeared on the screen. The chairman and the chiefs of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Space Force. "Gentlemen," Admiral Johnson began. "We have a significant situation. Chinese intelligence services have penetrated our critical energy infrastructure networks. I'll let Deputy Director Tanya brief you on the technical details." I pulled up my presentation. "Sir, at approximately 1,300 hours today, we detected unusual data exfiltration from the energy security systems. Forensic analysis indicates Chinese operatives have had persistent access for about 120 days. 120 days? The chairman interrupted. "They've been inside for 4 months, and we're just finding out now?" "Yes, sir," I said. "They used advanced techniques to evade our detection systems. The good news is they haven't reached the most critical systems yet. The bad news is they're actively working towards them." "What can they access?" the Air Force chief asked. "Currently, energy production data, grid security protocols, and personnel information. If they reach their objective, they could access energy command and control authentication systems." The room went silent. "Deputy Director Tanya, what's your recommendation?" the chairman asked. "Sir, I recommend immediate authorization for active cyber defensive operations. We need to kick them out of the network and disrupt their command infrastructure. If we don't act in the next few hours, they may reach systems that could compromise our energy security. Active operations mean offensive operations." "That's escalatory," the Navy chief said. "Letting them compromise our energy command and control is more escalatory," I replied. "Sir, we're past the point of passive defense. We need to hit them hard to show we're serious." The chairman looked at Admiral Johnson. "Admiral, your assessment?" "I agree with Deputy Director Tanya. This is what we've built the National Cyber Defense Agency for. We have the capability. We need the authority," Johnson said. "I'll take this to the President." "Stand by," the chairman said. The video conference went on hold. It was 4:30 p.m. My parents' barbecue was probably still going. People were probably asking where I went. Dad was probably making excuses for me. And I was in the Pentagon, waiting for authorization to launch a cyber attack against China. My personal phone buzzed. A text from Ethan, "Mom says you left. Real classy, sis." I put the phone away. 20 minutes later, the video conference reconnected. The chairman's face was grim. "Deputy Director Tanya, you have presidential authorization to execute defensive cyber operations against the Chinese intrusion. Rules of engagement are in your briefing packet. The President wants this resolved before it hits the media." "Yes, sir. We'll get it done," I said. I turned to my team of 20 of the best cyber warfare specialists in the world. You heard the chairman. We have authorization. Execute Protocol Eagle. I want those Chinese out of our network within the hour, and I want their command infrastructure degraded enough that they think twice before trying this again. My lead operator's fingers flew across the keyboard. We had assets around the world for this scenario, teams in Germany, South Korea, Australia, and 2 locations in the United States. Initiating first phase, isolating compromised systems, someone called out. Second phase ready, preparing counter-intrusion vectors, another voice said. 35 minutes into the operation, my personal phone rang. It was Mom. Tanya, where are you? The neighbors are asking questions. Your father is furious. I'm at work, Mom. I told you I had an emergency. I'm in the middle of something important, I said, watching as my team successfully ejected the Chinese operatives from the first set of compromised systems. Everything is always important with you. Nothing is ever as important as your family. Do you even care what we think anymore? Mom said, her voice close to tears. On my main screen, the operation was entering its final phase. We were kicking the Chinese out of our networks and systematically dismantling their command infrastructure. Mom, I need to go, I said. Of course you do. You always need to go, she said bitterly and hung up. Ma'am, we've successfully removed all Chinese access. They're completely dark. Their counter-measures are failing, my lead analyst called out. Good. Push forward. I want their command servers offline, I said, refocusing on the mission. 16 minutes later, it was done. The Chinese intrusion had been completely eliminated from our networks. Their command infrastructure had been degraded by about 55%. We left a clear digital signature in their systems. Mission accomplished, Admiral Johnson said, reviewing the results. Outstanding work, Tanya. You just prevented a major compromise of our national energy security. Team effort, sir, I said, exhausted. Your team, your plan, your execution. I'm putting you in for a commendation, he replied. I didn't leave the Pentagon until almost 1 a.m. After hours of debriefings, writing the after-action report, and coordinating with the Energy Department to secure their networks, I drove back to my apartment. I had 42 missed calls and 61 text messages from family members. I sat in my car in the parking garage, too tired to deal with it. But I knew I had to call them back. I tried Mom first. Tanya. Finally, she said. Hi, Mom. I'm sorry I left earlier. Something came up at work. Something always comes up at work. Do you know how embarrassing it was explaining to our guests why you disappeared? I told them you had a minor emergency at your government job, like a paperwork crisis. I wanted to laugh. I was coordinating a cyber attack against Chinese intelligence while she was telling people I was dealing with paperwork. It was more serious than paperwork, I said carefully. I'm sure it felt serious to you, but you have to understand how it looked to us. We were hosting a nice event, introducing you to successful people, and you couldn't even stay for a few hours. It makes us look bad and you look unstable. I'm not unstable, Mom. I'm doing my job, I said. A job that makes you work every weekend, miss every family event, and keep this ridiculous level of secrecy. Normal people have a work-life balance, she replied. My work isn't normal. It's not a 9-to-5 job. I can't just walk away when it's inconvenient, I said, my frustration breaking through. Because you're an analyst, Dad's voice said. An analyst who acts like she's running the NSA or something. You're not that important. Just then, my secure phone buzzed. A message from Admiral Johnson. The President was briefed on today's operation. He specifically asked me to pass along his thanks to you personally. Outstanding work. The President of the United States had personally thanked me, yet my parents thought I was an over-dramatic analyst having a paperwork crisis. I need to go. It's late, I said. We're not done with this conversation. We need to talk about your priorities, Dad said. My priority is my job, and I'm good at it. I'm sorry if that's inconvenient for your social calendar, I said and hung up. I went upstairs to my apartment. Just as I was taking off my shoes, there was a knock on the door. I checked the security camera and saw Ethan. What are you doing here? I asked, opening the door. We need to talk, he said, pushing past me into the apartment. It's 1:30 a.m. Ethan, I said. I don't care, he replied. He turned to me, looking genuinely concerned. What's going on with you? Mom and Dad are worried. I'm worried. You're acting like a secret agent, disappearing randomly, working crazy hours, and never talking about your job. It's weird, Tanya. I'm just doing my job, I said. Which is what exactly? Nobody believes the analyst thing anymore. You don't act like an analyst. You act like someone with real authority. The way you talk, carry yourself, and dress. That's not low-level government employee behavior. I was too tired to maintain the cover story. Ethan, I can't talk about my job. I've told you this 100 times. Can't or won't? He asked. Both, I replied. That's not good enough. Mom and Dad deserve better answers. I deserve better. We're your family, he said. And because you're my family, I'm trying to protect you, I said, my voice rising. You think I keep operational security because I like being mysterious? I do it because the less you know, the safer you are. Safer.